Hello, it's Sarah with My Natural Baby Birth Moms. Today we are talking all about preventing perineal tears. What the heck are they? How do they happen? Do you want one or not? Obviously no, but how do we prevent them? And before we get to that, if you missed this week, I just barely put all of the freebies and printables and downloads and ebooks and guides from the website into our new shop so that you can find everything all at one place. Just go to mynaturalbabybirth.com/shop and you can grab what you need in getting ready for birth or just being a mom afterwards. Okay, so what is a perineal tear? Well, I decided not to use any little diagrams or share my screen because we can just talk about it. Your perineum is the tissue between the bottom of your vagina, your vaginal opening, the very bottom of it, down to your anus. There's like a 2-inch gap there of tissue that is called your perineum. And what happens is during childbirth, because of the pressure and movement of the baby's head and crowning and coming down, it can tear. You can literally rip that tissue open. And it can be a little tiny tear that doesn't even need stitches. It can be all the way down through your rectum, which is the worst kind, and those muscles and tissues have to be stitched back together, and it's so painful healing afterwards. Some women say that they can feel it as it's happening during birth. I've never noticed it specifically. I've torn 3 times. But the worst part for me, I feel, and what I hear most of the time, is that the pain from healing afterwards is the worst, because you have scar tissue down there now. You have pain during sex later on, even months and into years down the road. It can burn, and you're sore and stiff, and your stitches are itchy, and it's just terrible. Honestly, I think it's worse than the actual part of giving birth, honestly. So we want to prevent getting a perineal tear as much as possible. And so there are a bunch of different things that you can do to prevent them, but I will give you a caveat, because you can do everything right. You can do all of these things that we're going to talk about, and you can still tear. You can do absolutely nothing right, have the worst positions and have the worst habits during your pregnancy and birth, and maybe you don't tear at all. You can have a huge baby and not tear. You can have a teeny tiny baby and tear. It's so unique and individual to every mom based on her genetics, her skin type, the melanin in her skin, the nutrients she has in her body, that it is almost impossible to predict if you will or not without having a history of babies beforehand. That said, though, it is still shown in many ways we'll talk about that you can prevent the risk and chances of having a perineal tear, because you don't want one. Don't want one. Okay, so I'm going to go through a bunch of things. I think I have 10 here, okay? So the first one is to moisturize. Now, I know when you are getting big and you have this huge belly, and especially right now because it's summertime, you're sweaty down there, and you don't even want to be wet, right? Because that leads to other problems. But you have to at least keep your skin moisturized. So say after you get out of the shower or after you take a bath and you dry off, you don't want your skin to be tight and dry. You still want to moisturize it with something that's not scented, not strong, just very simple, like coconut oil, right? Something really simple. So that your skin is moist and pliable and flexible, but not so moist that you're just sticky, right? Because you don't want to be too moist either. You also want down there to breathe as much as possible. The air and oxygen getting up there as much as it can is actually really helpful. And you can do that just wearing a skirt, go without underwear. Honestly, it's okay. And just let your nethers breathe. And when you are asleep, when you're sleeping, of course, you're going to have a pillow in between your legs, hopefully, just to even be comfortable, but it helps you open up as well. And honestly, just wear a skirt as much as you can. It's great. Don't wear anything super tight fitting all the time. I know that there are awesome clothes like yoga pants and things that are so comfortable because they're so flexible, right, and they bend and move with us. And that's great. Awesome. I totally support that. I love those types of clothes, especially when working out. But don't wear them all the time. Okay, you've got to let your whole lower pelvic area breathe. Okay, it's really, really good for your skin. Okay, so you can also do perineal massage. And this you don't have to do all the time, every single day, all throughout your pregnancy. It's really just best during your last month or two of pregnancy. And you don't have to do it super every single day on the dot, just every 2 or 3 days. I have a tutorial on the blog. I'll share a link with you afterwards where you can learn how to do that. And you can do it yourself or you can have someone help you. But what it's really doing is, so your vaginal tissue and your perineal tissue, it's not like a cinched opening, right? Your tissues open up more like flower petals, okay? But to a certain point, you know, you're open as far as you can. The more flexible they are, the wider you can open, the easier that baby descends, and of course, the less likely you're going to tear. And so doing perineal massage and using a lubricant while you do it is simply just helping it loosen up, helping your perineal tissue to open easier, stretching it. It can be a little uncomfortable, and it can sting a little bit, especially at first. But after you get the hang of it, doing it, 10-15 minutes every couple of days, it's not that bad, and it actually honestly helps you feel more comfortable down there too. So when I would do it, I would honestly just sit in my chair in my room when I would watch TV. So you don't have to do it in front of anybody, but it's really valuable. So I'll share a tutorial for that with you. If you want to have a water birth is really great as well, because if you're in the water, you're moisturized automatically, of course, while you're giving birth. But the water soaking up into your skin makes it stretchier. Like when we get those raisiny fingers and toes after swimming, same idea. Your skin is more flexible because you've been in the water. And so we talked about water births a couple weeks ago. But if you want to, I'll post a link for that so you can review it too. If you're thinking about that, it helps prevent a perineal tear as well. Okay, another thing you want to do while you're in labor is while you're crowning and pushing, do not squat really deep. Now, I know that when you're exercising and you're opening up your pelvis and you're strengthening all of that, like we've talked about, you want to be able to squat and get to a point where you're squatting as deep as you can go, because that's the most opened up and flexible you are, which is great. However, if you are in the middle of crowning and you are squatting super, super deep, those tissues are actually angled and pulled in a certain way that can make you tear worse. And so you can still be squatting while you birth and still get fantastic benefits for opening up, but you maybe don't want to go down all the way. You might want to have your husband or the nurse or midwife help support you, hold onto a bar so that you are lifted up a little bit and your bum isn't just all the way down. Make sense? Okay. So, and with that, you can actually, the best labor and delivery position for preventing a perineal tear is birthing on your side. So laying on your side, kind of in a runner position, where I'm not in a good camera angle to do this, but your knees are bent, right? And your top leg, I'm holding my leg and you can't even see it. And your top leg, you're holding on to it so that you're still opened up as if you were squatting, but you're still laying on your side. And it helps, instead of the baby's head coming out, pushing equally all around your tissue, it's pushing more directly to the side versus the bottom. Does that make sense? If you are upright, the bottom of your perineum is where more of the pressure is going to be. But if you are on your side, the side of your perineum, your tissues, your labia, towards your sit bones is where more pressure is going to be. And there's more tissue there. It's more flexible there versus the bottom. So you can try delivering on your side. I've never, ever loved laying on my side during labor and delivery. I felt like it was closing things off. It made me uncomfortable, and I never liked it. But it may work great for you, so give that a try. Okay, one of the biggest things that causes a perineal tear is, especially for new moms, they feel that sudden pressure of the uterus bearing down and the baby's head descending through your vagina, and all of those pressures and all of that opening up starts happening, and it can freak them out, right? Imagine the biggest, hardest bowel movement ever, right? That's the closest thing I can compare it to. And that can make those moms super uncomfortable, especially if they're really anxious or freaked out about what's happening and scared. And so when they start feeling those pressures, they'll push. They'll start pushing really hard because they want to get it over with. They want to get that baby out. And so they often push too hard, too fast, forcing that baby out faster than their tissues and pelvis can open up to allow that baby to come out in a more gentler way. And so when you're pushing super hard and fast, you are more likely to tear bigger and worse. And so until you have experienced labor and delivery for yourself, the best I can say is when that baby starts to descend, you have to be prepared, knowing that as you're pushing along with it, or even if you're just breathing that baby out and allowing your uterus to do all the job, to do all the work, which it absolutely can. I'll link to that too. You have to remember that when that baby's coming down, it feels like they're going 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And that's okay. They don't have to go 2 steps forward and stop, 2 steps forward and keep going until they're all the way out. It's a gradual motion, and so you have to be patient as long as possible. It's part of that breathing baby out. Okay, and then, okay, I've already talked about that. And the last thing that you can do is, if you have a midwife or doula, birthing partner, whoever is with you, even the nurse, you can use a warm, wet compress down, applied against your tissue. So just a washcloth that's clean, really warm, and just applying it to your tissue while you're crowning to kind of help it stay supple, keep it warm, because hospitals, if you're in a hospital, they're always cold, and it can just help, like a small moist heating pad on your area. I've never tried that. I didn't want anybody touching me when I've been in labor each time, but that can actually help really well. Okay, so now, like I said at the very beginning, you can do all of these things I've just listed. You can do them all. Work them into your birth plan and prepare and plan and affirm those actions in your mind. But if you still end up tearing, it's okay. It doesn't necessarily mean that you did anything wrong. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about my births. I've had 3 natural births and I've torn 3 times. Okay, and the first one, I was kind of doing everything wrong. I was laying way too far back. I was pushing way too hard. I had a vacuum extraction as well, and I had a level 3 tear, which is a tear all the way down to my rectum. Had stitches, terrible recovery, didn't love it at all. Scar tissue, had pain for years after. Okay, my second delivery, I was sitting upright with my legs propped up, like squatting, but I was totally relaxed. It was a very calm and relaxing birth. I breathed and pushed very gently with my baby. He slid out really well, and I still tore. The same exact level 3 tear, the same exact way, same stitches, because I tore right on that same scar tissue. If you have torn before, that scar tissue is weak. It's not perfect tissue, and you're more likely to tear again if you've already torn once before. You aren't guaranteed to tear. However, you are much more likely to tear again, like I did. Okay, now fast forward my third birth. I was on my hands and knees, and I didn't even plan it that way. It just happened, and I was on my hands and knees, and I felt all of the pressure of him coming out towards the top, up towards my clitoris and urethra, because, you know, I was completely flipped over, and so his head was putting pressure on the totally opposite end. And I still tore. I still tore, again, on the bottom of my perineum, but it was in a different spot than my scar tissue. I had the 2 big tears before on the same scar tissue in the same spot, and then my third birth, I had a small tear that was like level 1. It was nothing compared to healing from my first 2 tears, but I still tore. Totally different positions, totally different prep for birth, and so I just maybe have a skin type that is totally prone to that. But I still did many things differently the third time to help prevent tearing. I did perineal massage. I breathed my baby out. I was in a totally different position. I think that's about everything. I kept everything moist and breathable and all of these things that we just talked about, and I still tore. But I'm so glad I did all of those things, because the healing that I went through afterwards was so much faster and practically nothing compared to what I had to go through the first 2 times, right? So be wise about what you're doing to prepare your perineal tissue for birth, because I promise, I promise that if you get a bad tear, you will have the next 3-6 months ahead of you in just discomfort. And we don't want that. We don't want that for you, right? We want to have fantastically strong tissue that's great. So go ahead. I will post a bunch of links for all these things we've talked about, and then you can read more. And if you have any questions for me, let me move my little notepad out of the way. Savannah, you said I don't want to drop the terrible E word here, but due to lack of knowledge, what is worse to recover from, episiotomy or a tear? That is a matter of debate. So an episiotomy is your doctor going in there with a scalpel and literally cutting you, because they believe that you have to be opened up more so that that baby's head can come out. And honestly, a tear, you will recover as far as feeling better from a tear better than an episiotomy, because a tear, the folds of your skin can grab back onto each other so much better than a straight line cut. Because a straight cut, there's no little folds, there's no different lengths of tissue trying to hold on to each other, and you have to have more complex stitches. However, I have been told that it's less painful in the long run, but still just very painful as well. But then if you actually there's a lot of doctors and nurses I've talked to that actually prefer tearing, and that if they absolutely know they have to open up the mom's tissues bigger, they may perform a tiny cut in order to make a fissure and then actually help the tissue tear a little bit after giving the mom a a shot of local anesthetic because they know that a tear will actually heal better. So I hope that answers your question, Savannah. Let me know if you have any others. Okay? And if anyone else has questions, I would love to answer them. Next week, we're going to do part 2 of this. We're going to be chatting about, okay, you've got a tear or an episiotomy. How do you heal from that? What are the best things you can do to get over that and feel better and get back to normal as fast as possible? Okay, Chris, you said, I had an episiotomy with my first from one end to the other. Oh gosh, to make room for forceps, darn. The recovery was absolutely awful, just awful. With my second, I tore, but granted, I don't think it was a really bad tear, and the recovery was nothing. Awesome. Yeah, and we're also different. If we've already got damaged tissue there, the recovery is so much different versus a brand new tear, and so it really depends on your experience and what you're doing. There's so many factors. I wish I could say that, oh, I promise if you do all of these things, you will absolutely prevent any additional injury to yourself during birth. But, biology is biology, and not everything is predictable. And that's okay, because we are gifted with all of these complex abilities to heal and make use of our current situation better. So, thank you, Savannah and Chris, for your comments. If anyone else has any other questions, feel free, even afterwards, post them below this video, and I would be happy to answer them. I will see you guys next week on talking about how to recover from any sort of tearing, or even just plain old stretching and bruising afterwards if you've torn or not, because you're still going to be a bit sore. So, okay, you guys are great. I will talk to you later. Again, if you haven't checked out the shop, go to mynaturalbabybirth.com/shop, and you can see everything in there that I've created for moms just like you, and I will be adding more things frequently, often, at least once a month. And so if you have any ideas of things that you want to see in there, if there's a guide or a cheat sheet or a workbook or download for something that you need help with right now, and you don't even have to be pregnant, just be a mom or mom-to-be, let me know, and I will make it for you, okay? All right, you guys are great. I'll talk to you later. Hope this serves you, and have a great day.